The wind swept across the barren plains of Kalara, lifting red dust into the sky. The horizon stretched endlessly, broken only by jagged rocks and the ruins of cities that once belonged to humans. Commander Elias walked slowly, each step leaving a mark in the fine soil. His armor was scratched and worn, a silent testament to battles fought long ago. The silence around him felt heavy, almost as if the planet itself mourned the absence of life. He had thought he was the last human on Kalara, but a strange feeling stirred in his chest, a mix of hope and caution. Elias's eyes scanned the horizon. He had learned to trust his instincts after surviving years alone. He had heard rumors of alien patrols, scavengers searching for any remaining humans. Kalara was dangerous for a human who wandered unarmed, but Elias carried nothing more than a small energy pistol and his will to survive. Suddenly, movement flickered in the distance. He froze. The figure was small, fragile, and moving slowly toward him. Elias lowered his hand slightly, observing carefully. The figure came closer and the dust cleared. It was a girl, not more than 12 years old in appearance, though her alien features were unmistakable. Her skin shimmered faintly under the sun, with shades of blue and green blending softly. Her eyes were large, golden, and full of emotion. She knelt in the dust before Elias and spoke in a language that sounded broken but familiar. "You are still alive," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Elias blinked, unsure how to respond. He had expected anger or hostility from any alien, but this was different. The girl did not carry a weapon. She seemed hesitant, almost afraid. Curiosity outweighed caution. He lowered his pistol completely and knelt a few steps away to meet her eye level. "I am Elias," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Who are you?" "I am Lyra," the girl replied. I watched you. I came to find you." Elias studied her carefully. Lyra's words were human-like, though her accent was alien. He noticed the faint scars on her arms, and the dirt that covered her clothes suggested a long journey. Somehow she had survived in a world that had turned cruel. "Why?" Elias asked. "Why find me?" Lyra hesitated. She looked down at the dust before speaking. "Because not all of us are like them. I do not want war. I want peace. You are strong. Humans are strong." Elias felt a flicker of hope. He had seen many die on this planet, and every surviving human was a symbol of resilience. "Strong," he repeated. "Humans survived because we never gave up, even when it seemed impossible." "What makes you trust me?" Lyra's golden eyes shone. "I know, I see it in you. You survived when others could not. That is why I came. We need your help." Elias's mind raced. The idea of help from an alien was strange, almost unbelievable. He had lived decades without trust, and yet something about Lyra felt different. Something about her sincerity called to him. He decided to listen. "What kind of help?" Elias asked. Lyra shifted, her small frame trembling slightly. "There is danger, my people. Some of them want to finish what your people started. The war is not over. But I can stop them if you help me." Elias studied her. The words were heavy with meaning. The war had ended decades ago, but the destruction had left Kalara scarred and empty. Could there really be survivors plotting further attacks? And why would a child be involved in something so dangerous? He had no choice but to trust his instincts. He would follow her cautiously and see the truth for himself. "All right," he said finally. "Show me." Lyra nodded and stood, brushing dust from her clothes. Her movements were graceful, careful, almost human in their subtlety. Elias followed her as she led the way toward a distant ridge, where jagged rocks formed a natural pathway. As they walked, she explained as best as she could in broken human words. "My people, divided. Some want war. Some want peace. I am alone. They do not listen. You, human, you can teach them. You can show strength." Elias listened quietly. He had spent years alone, and now he realized that survival was not just about strength. It was also about understanding, about seeing opportunities where others saw only danger. The thought that humans could still make a difference even after so much loss stirred something inside him. The ridge they climbed led to a plateau overlooking the ruins of an old city. Crumbling towers reached toward the sky, and broken streets lay like scars across the land. Elias felt a pang of sorrow. This city had once thrived with human life. Now it was a ghost of its former self. Lyra knelt again at the edge of the plateau, pointing toward the ruins below. "They hide there," she said. "The ones who want war, they plan something terrible." Elias scanned the area. He could see faint movements among the ruins, shadows that shifted unnaturally. It was clear that some aliens had established a hidden base and they were not expecting him. "We need to be careful," he said. "We cannot fight them all. We must be smart." Lyra's eyes widened. "Smart like humans?" "Yes," Ilias replied. "Humans survive not just with strength, but with thinking, with planning. That is what makes us dangerous." Together they descended into the ruins, moving cautiously. Lyra led Elias through hidden paths and collapsed buildings, places where alien patrols could not easily follow. She pointed out traps and weak points in the structures, her knowledge of alien tactics impressive for someone so young. Elias began to see her as more than a child. She was a survivor, resourceful and clever. Hours passed as they navigated the ruined city. Elias marveled at her understanding of alien behavior. She knew when to hide, when to move, and when to speak. It reminded him of humans in the war, using strategy and quick thinking to survive. Finally, they reached the edge of the alien settlement, hidden behind a wall of twisted metal and debris. Elias could see figures moving inside, aliens preparing for something, unaware that he and Lyra were watching. Lyra whispered, "They do not expect humans. They think we are gone." Elias nodded. "Then we will use that. We will gather information, and we will survive. That is what humans do." The sun began to set, painting the sky with deep oranges and purples. Shadows stretched across the ruins, and the wind carried a chill. Elias felt a strange sense of hope. He was not alone anymore. Lyra had found him, and together they could face whatever dangers lay ahead. "You trust me?" Lyra asked quietly. Elias looked at her golden eyes, so full of sincerity and courage. He felt a spark of connection that went beyond species or past wars. "I trust you," he said, "but we must be careful. Survival is not enough. We must be smart and strong." Lyra smiled faintly, and for the first time in decades, Elias felt the weight of loneliness lift, replaced by the possibility of hope. The ruins below were silent, but soon they would be the stage for a struggle that required more than strength. It required human ingenuity, resilience, and the courage to face overwhelming odds. As night fell, Elias and Lyra set up a small camp hidden among the ruins. Elias taught her how to build a basic shelter, how to store water, and how to stay hidden. Lyra, in turn, taught him how to understand alien signals, how to read subtle movements, and how to anticipate the enemy's plans. Each was learning from the other, and each was beginning to respect the unique abilities of the other species. By the time the stars appeared overhead, Elias realized something profound. Humanity's strength had always been more than muscle or weapons. It was hope, resilience, and the ability to inspire others even in the darkest times. Lyra, though an alien, had understood that instinctively. As they rested, Elias allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. He had thought he was alone, the last human on a forgotten planet. Now, with Lyra at his side, he understood that survival was not the end. It was the beginning of something greater. Together they would face the dangers of Kalara, and together they would show that the human spirit could shine even in the most unlikely places. Lyra whispered softly, "You are still alive." Elias smiled faintly. Yes, he was still alive, and for the first time in many years he felt that perhaps humanity itself was not truly lost. The journey ahead would be difficult, but with courage, intelligence, and hope, there was a chance to turn the shadow of war into a new dawn. The wind swept across the ruins once more, carrying with it the scent of dust, metal, and the promise of survival. The human and the alien looked out at the darkened city, each understanding that the story of Kalara was only beginning. The first light of dawn crept over the horizon, painting Kalara's barren plains with soft shades of pink and orange. Commander Elias and Lyra sat on the edge of the ruins, quietly observing the alien settlement below. The shadows of towers and walls stretched long across the ground, giving the place a strange, almost eerie appearance. Elias studied the movement of the figures inside. He could see small patrols walking in patterns, some carrying equipment, others speaking in strange tones. Lyra pointed to several of them, whispering their names and roles in her broken human language. "They are scouts," she said. "They look for humans. They want war." Elias nodded. He had seen this before. Every move, every patrol was predictable once you understood the enemy's logic. "We need to be careful," he said. "We cannot act too quickly. We must watch and learn first." Lyra tilted her head. "Learn human ways?" "Yes," Elias replied. "Humans survive not just by fighting. We observe, we plan. That is how we win when the odds are against us. The girl nodded, absorbing every word. Her large golden eyes reflected both fear and determination. Elias realized that although she was young and small, her mind was sharp. She could understand things that even some of his human comrades might have missed. They moved closer to the edge of the ruins, slipping silently between broken walls and collapsed buildings. The ground was uneven, filled with debris, but Lyra guided Elias carefully. She knew where patrols would pass and where shadows could hide them. Elias marveled at her skill. "You have been here long?" he asked quietly. Lyra shook her head. "No, I traveled, alone, learned, watched, alone," Elias repeated. The thought of surviving on this planet alone, with hostile aliens everywhere, made him shiver. "You are very brave," he said. Lyra shrugged. "I have no choice. Others, they do not listen. I must." Elias understood. She was different from the other aliens. She had chosen a path of survival and learning, not destruction. That choice, he realized, mirrored the very essence of humanity. Humans often survived because they made choices when others acted blindly. As they observed the settlement, Lyra began to explain more about the divisions among her people. "There are two groups," she said. "One, they want humans gone. They will finish war. One, like me, we want peace. We want to stop war." Elias frowned. "And why are you alone?" "They do not listen to me," Lyra whispered. "They think I am small. They think humans are gone. They do not see the truth." Elias put a hand on her shoulder. "Size does not matter. Strength is not always in muscle. It is in courage, in thinking, in hope. That is why humans survive." Lyra smiled faintly. Elias could see a spark of trust forming between them. She had found someone who understood her, and he had found an ally in an unexpected form. After a moment, Elias stood. "We cannot just watch forever. We need to know what they are planning. Information is power, and humans use it well." Lyra nodded. "I know a place," she said. "Old tunnels, hidden under city. They use for plans. We can go." Elias followed her cautiously as she led him through narrow passages, carefully avoiding patrols. The tunnels were dark and cold, with metal walls twisted by time and neglect. Elias adjusted his helmet lights to a dim glow, allowing them to move without drawing attention. Every step echoed faintly, and every shadow seemed alive with danger. Finally, they reached a hidden chamber deep beneath the ruins. Inside, holographic screens displayed maps, troop movements, and strange alien symbols. Elias studied the displays. The technology was advanced, but with careful observation he could see patterns. This was a command center, and the aliens were planning something big. Lyra pointed to one map. "Here. They prepare attack. Humans, if they return, will be gone." Elias's eyes narrowed. He could see the threat clearly. "We must stop them," he said, "but not by fighting blindly. We need a plan. Humans win with strategy, with understanding. First we learn, then we act." Lyra leaned closer, her voice soft but urgent. "I cannot do alone. I need your help, you human. Strong, teach me." Elias smiled faintly. "You have learned much already. But yes, I will guide you. Humans have survived because we share knowledge. We build strength together." The hours passed as Elias explained human tactics, using the maps and holograms to illustrate points. He taught Lyra about observing patterns, predicting enemy behavior, and using small advantages to create large effects. Lyra listened carefully, absorbing every detail. She asked questions, tested ideas, and slowly began to understand the depth of human thinking. "You think like humans," Elias said after a while. "You understand strategy, but also patience. That is why you survived. That is why humans survived." Lyra's eyes shone. "I want to help. I want peace. I do not want war." Elias nodded. "Then we will use what we know. Together we can stop them without needless fighting. But we must be careful. They are powerful, and they will not expect humans to fight wisely, not just with strength." They spent the day mapping out patrol routes, learning about the settlement's defenses, and planning a way to gather more information. Every moment revealed more about the alien faction's intentions. They were not simply guarding territory. They were preparing for an offensive that could threaten other human colonies, even ones far from Kailara. As the sun dipped low, Elias realized they needed more than observation. They needed access to alien technology hidden deeper within the city. Such devices could amplify Lyra's voice among her people, and help them resist the warlike faction. "We will need to enter the main facility," Elias said. "It will be dangerous, but humans survive by taking risks when necessary. We will move at night when shadows are our allies." Lyra nodded. "I know path a secret. I can guide." That night they moved silently through the ruins, slipping past patrols and using abandoned buildings as cover. Elias was impressed by Lyra's skill. She anticipated every movement, whispered warnings before a patrol came near, and knew when to stop and wait. Together they became a single unit, human and alien working as one. Finally they reached the facility, a massive structure built from dark metal and alien stone. It hummed with energy, the walls glowing faintly with light. Lyra led Elias to a hidden entrance, a maintenance hatch that few would notice. They slipped inside and moved carefully through narrow corridors, guided by the faint hum of machinery and Lyra's knowledge. The deeper they went, the more Elias realized how advanced this alien faction was. Holographic displays lit the walls, showing maps of other human colonies, weapons designs, and troop movements. But Elias was not afraid. Humans survived because they adapted. And now, in the company of someone who could see both sides, he had an advantage. At last they reached a central chamber. In the middle stood a device Elias had never seen before. It pulsed with energy, sending waves through the room. Lyra's eyes widened. "This, they use to control. Influence. Many will follow if device is active." Elias studied it. "Then we must disable it or learn to control it ourselves. Humans have survived by using tools, not just weapons. This is a tool we can use." Lyra nodded. "I trust human. You know ways." For hours, Elias examined the device, using his knowledge of human technology and logic to understand its function. Lyra assisted, providing information about alien designs and safety systems. Slowly, they pieced together the purpose of the device and how it could be used to prevent the rogue faction from striking. By the time the first light of dawn touched the room, Elias had a plan. They could neutralize the device temporarily, giving them time to rally others who sought peace. They could show Lyra's people that war was not inevitable, and that humans were capable of surviving, thinking and inspiring even those who were once enemies. Lyra looked at him with gratitude. You are clever. Human clever." Elias smiled faintly. "Humans survive not because we are the strongest, but because we learn, adapt, and hope. That is why we are still here. That is why you can trust us." As they prepared to leave the chamber, Elias felt a renewed sense of purpose. The war had left Kaylara in ruins, but the human spirit, even in the form of a single survivor, could ignite change. Lyra had seen that spark, and together, they would turn it into a force that could challenge even the most powerful alien faction. The hidden truth was clear now. Humans were not just survivors. They were catalysts for hope and change, and Kaylara was about to witness the beginning of a story that would show that even in the darkest times, courage, intelligence, and unity could shape the future. Elias and Lyra slipped back into the shadows of the ruins, ready to face the challenges ahead. The city below was quiet, but the night was alive with possibility. They were not just hiding anymore. They were learning, planning, and preparing to turn the tide. And in that quiet determination, the human spirit shone brighter than any weapon, any fleet, or any alien power. The first step had been taken. The hidden truth was known, and together, human and alien, they would face the coming storm with courage and hope. The night was deep and quiet, but every shadow on Kaylara felt alive. Commander Elias and Lyra moved cautiously through the abandoned streets of the ruined city, their steps silent on the cracked stone and metal debris. The patrols of the rogue alien faction were still active, and any careless move could bring disaster. Elias kept his hand near his energy pistol, though he did not want to use it unless absolutely necessary. He had learned long ago that survival depended more on wit than on brute force. Lyra led him with confidence, pointing out hidden paths and warning of weak spots in the ground. "Here," she whispered. "They do not see us. Wait." Elias crouched behind a broken wall, watching the patrol pass. The aliens moved in perfect formation, unaware of the humans slipping through shadows. Elias admired their precision, but he also saw weaknesses. Every routine, every predictable movement was a chance for human cleverness to turn the tide. "You think like humans," he said quietly to Lyra. "You notice patterns. That is why you survived. That is why humans always find a way. Lyra nodded. Her golden eyes reflected determination. I want to help. I want to stop war. I want peace. Elias smiled faintly. Then we must move quickly. We cannot stay here long. They crept through the ruins until they reached the outskirts of the alien settlement. Ahead lay the collapsed city sector, a dangerous area where debris and broken structures created a labyrinth. Patrols sometimes moved through it, but it offered a chance to escape undetected. As they entered the maze of twisted metal and stone, a sudden sound echoed behind them. A patrol had spotted movement in the distance and was closing in. Elias grabbed Lyra's arm. Faster, he urged. We need to find cover. Lyra led him to a narrow tunnel hidden beneath a pile of rubble. They crawled inside, the darkness pressing around them. Elias felt the tension in Lyra's body. She was small, but her courage shone brightly. Humans survived countless wars, not just because of strength, but because of the will to endure and the ability to act when others froze. He admired her bravery. The patrol outside grew louder, their voices carrying strange tones that made the walls vibrate. Elias whispered instructions. We need to stay calm. Wait for the right moment. Humans survive by thinking, not rushing. Minutes passed like hours. The footsteps faded and the air outside grew still again. Elias and Lyra continued through the tunnel, moving deeper into the ruins. The walls glowed faintly with remnants of alien technology, and the air hummed with energy. Elias realized that the tunnels were part of a larger network, perhaps once used for supply lines or secret passages. Now they were a lifeline. Finally, the tunnel opened into a wide chamber. The ceiling had collapsed in places, letting beams of moonlight illuminate the floor. Elias scanned the area. It was empty, but he knew they could not linger. We must move on, he said. We are close to the edge of the city, but danger is everywhere. Lyra nodded and pointed to a path leading up a small ridge. Here, she whispered. We can climb. Then, open plains. Safe for now. They climbed carefully, each step calculated to avoid loose rocks and hidden traps. From the top of the ridge, they could see the vast plains stretching to the horizon. The wind carried the scent of dust and metal, but there was no sign of the patrols. Elias allowed himself a moment of relief. They had escaped the immediate danger, but he knew the threat was not gone. The rogue alien faction was powerful, and their settlement was only the beginning. To survive, they needed more than hiding. They needed allies, strategy, and knowledge, and that was exactly what they planned to find. Elias looked at Lyra. We need to move to a safer location. Somewhere they will not expect us. Somewhere we can plan. Lyra nodded. I know, a place. Far from here. Old human facility hidden. We can go, Elias agreed. The journey would be long and difficult, but humans survived harsh conditions by endurance and clever thinking. He trusted Lyra's knowledge of alien behavior, and he knew her determination matched his own. Together they would find the facility and use it as a base to prepare for the challenges ahead. As they descended the ridge and crossed the open plains, they encountered remnants of old human technology buried beneath the soil. Rusted vehicles, broken drones, and fragments of energy cells littered the landscape. Elias stopped and examined a partially buried drone. Its systems were damaged, but he could see its design. Humans had once built these machines to survive on harsh planets. He could repair it, and it might help them gather information from the rogue faction. Lyra watched, fascinated. Human fix? Yes, Elias replied. Humans survive by using tools, by thinking creatively. We make what is broken work again. That is our strength. They worked together to repair the drone. Lyra observed every step, asking questions and learning quickly. She had survived by instinct, but now she was learning human ingenuity. By the time the sun began to rise, the drone was operational, its sensors scanning the terrain for threats. Elias smiled. Now we have eyes where we cannot go. Lyra's excitement was clear. We can see. They do not see us, Elias nodded. Exactly. Humans survive by seeing opportunities where others see only danger. We will use this to stay ahead. As they continued across the plains, the drone flew ahead, scouting the route. They discovered alien patrols and small outposts, all unaware of the humans observing them from a distance. Elias marked locations in his memory, planning future movements. Every piece of information was a tool, every observation a chance to survive and succeed. After several hours of travel, they reached a small valley surrounded by jagged cliffs. Elias could see signs of an old human facility hidden among the rocks. It had been long abandoned, but the structure was intact enough to provide shelter. Lyra pointed. Here, safe. Few come. Elias smiled faintly. Good. Humans survive because we find safe places to rest, to plan, to prepare. This will be our base. They approached the facility cautiously. The doors were heavy and covered in dust, but Elias forced them open with careful strength. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Broken consoles and old machines lined the walls. Elias examined the technology, recognizing human designs mixed with alien adaptations. This facility had once been a center for survival, training, and observation. Lyra looked around in awe. Humans? Built? Here? Yes, Elias replied. Humans survive by leaving tools, knowledge, and places that can help even years later. That is why we endure. That is why we are still alive. They set up a small camp inside the facility, using old equipment to generate light and heat. Elias repaired communication devices while Lyra assisted, learning quickly. Together, they began to understand the purpose of the facility and how it could be used against the rogue faction. As night fell, Elias and Lyra observed the alien settlement from a safe distance. The rogue faction continued their patrols, unaware that humans were watching, learning, and preparing. Elias felt a renewed sense of hope. Humans survived because they adapted, and now, with knowledge and allies, they could influence events in ways the aliens had not anticipated. Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with determination. We can stop them? Elias smiled faintly. Yes, humans survive because we never give up. We face danger with courage, intelligence, and hope. And now we have a chance to do more than survive. We have a chance to protect others. Lyra nodded. I trust, human. We can try. The night passed quietly, but Elias remained alert. He knew the rogue faction could strike at any moment. Yet he felt no fear. Humans survived by preparation, by thinking ahead, and by using every resource at their disposal. He had found an ally in Lyra, someone who could see both sides, and together they were stronger than any force that might oppose them. Before dawn, Elias activated the drone to scout further areas. The device sent back images of distant patrols, supply lines, and hidden structures. Every detail added to their understanding, allowing them to plan the next steps. Lyra watched closely, learning quickly. Humans survived because they observed, learned, and adapted. She was beginning to see that the human spirit was more than survival. It was the ability to shape events, to influence outcomes, and to inspire even those who were different. By morning, Elias had a clear plan. They would continue to gather information, strengthen their position, and reach out to other potential allies. The rogue faction was powerful, but humans survived against impossible odds through intelligence, courage, and unity. Lyra had witnessed this firsthand, and together they would turn knowledge into action. As they prepared to move again, Elias looked at the plain stretching ahead. Danger was everywhere, but the human spirit was stronger. With courage, cleverness, and hope, they would survive and thrive. Kailara had been silent for too long. Now, it would witness the rise of determination, resilience, and the unstoppable force of humans united with allies willing to fight for peace. Lyra whispered softly, "We are ready." Elias nodded. Yes, humans survive, and we will show them how. The wind swept across the valley, carrying with it the scent of dust and metal. The ruins of Kailara seemed quiet, but beneath the silence, change was coming. Together, human and alien, they would face the storm ahead with courage, intelligence, and hope. And that was a force that even the strongest enemy could not ignore. The hidden valley was quiet, but the air was filled with anticipation. Commander Elias and Lyra moved carefully around the edges of the facility, preparing for the next stage of their plan. The rogue faction continued their patrols in the distance, unaware that humans had returned to Kailara. Elias studied the landscape, noting every hill, every rock, and every possible vantage point. Knowledge was power, and humans had always survived by understanding their environment. Lyra followed closely, carrying tools and devices salvaged from the facility. Her small frame moved quickly and silently, a reflection of the skills she had learned during her long journey. Elias admired her courage and intelligence. She was more than an ally. She was a student of human ingenuity, learning not just to survive but to strategize. "We need allies," Elias said. "We cannot face the rogue faction alone. Humans survived not just because of strength, But because we work together, we find others who want peace. We build an alliance, Lyra nodded. I know. Others, like me, they do not want war. They can help, Elias smiled faintly. Good, then we will find them. Humans survive because we trust wisely and act boldly. Over the next few days, Elias and Lyra ventured beyond the valley, using hidden paths and the drone to scout the terrain. They discovered scattered groups of aliens who had refused to join the rogue faction. These aliens were cautious and distrustful, but Lyra's presence reassured them. They listened as she spoke of humans and the possibility of peace. Elias observed quietly, learning their habits and understanding their fears. One evening, they gathered a small group in a secluded cave. Aliens of different shapes and sizes listened as Elias spoke. You have seen the rogue faction's cruelty, he said. They want to destroy humans and control your people. But we have a chance to stop them. Not with endless fighting, but with strategy, planning, and courage. Humans survived because we never gave up, and we can help you survive too. The aliens murmured among themselves. Lyra stepped forward. I trust human. You can trust too. We can stop war together. Elias observed the group. Humans always survived because they inspired others. Courage, intelligence, and hope spread faster than fear. Slowly, the aliens nodded and an alliance began to form. It was fragile, but it was a start. The next challenge was to prepare for the rogue faction's inevitable attack. Elias taught the new allies human strategies, observing enemy patterns, setting traps, and using the terrain to their advantage. Lyra assisted, explaining alien technology and defense systems. Together, they combined human ingenuity with alien knowledge. The alliance grew stronger each day. One night, as the sun set behind the cliffs, a faint light appeared on the horizon. Elias and Lyra activated the drone to investigate. The images revealed a fleet of alien ships approaching from the rogue faction settlement. They were heavily armed and moving quickly toward the valley. The time for planning was over. Humans survived by action, and now action was necessary. We need to prepare defenses, Elias said. Humans survived countless battles by using intelligence. We will use the land, the technology, and our allies to create an advantage. We may be outnumbered, but we are never outsmarted. Lyra nodded. We can do together. The valley became a hive of activity. Aliens worked alongside Elias and Lyra to set up energy barriers, hidden sensors, and traps. Humans' understanding of strategy was combined with alien speed and knowledge of their own technology. By dawn, the defenses were ready, and the allies were positioned to face the incoming fleet. The first ships appeared on the horizon, their dark silhouettes cutting against the rising sun. Elias scanned the fleet, noting the patterns and weaknesses. Humans survived by observing carefully before acting. He adjusted the defenses and coordinated signals with Lyra and the alien allies. Every move was calculated, every decision measured. The fleet reached the valley, and the first wave of attacks began. Energy blasts streaked across the sky, but the defenders used the terrain and their traps to block and redirect them. Aliens who had once been divided now moved with unity, inspired by the humans who had taught them courage and strategy. Elias directed movements from a central position, observing the battlefield. Keep moving. Watch the shadows. Attack when the enemy hesitates. Humans survive by patience, not just force. We will survive again. Lyra guided smaller groups of aliens, her knowledge of the rogue faction's technology giving them an edge. She watched humans act with intelligence and bravery, realizing that the stories she had heard about humans surviving impossible odds were true. Elias was not just strong. He was clever, quick, and unafraid to use his mind to turn danger into opportunity. Hours passed as the battle continued. The rogue faction's ships were powerful, but the Alliance's defenses held firm. Humans had survived by adapting, and now their strategies were shaping the outcome. Aliens who had once feared humans now fought alongside them, trusting the combination of courage, planning, and hope. During the battle, a massive alien command ship landed in the valley attempting to break the defenses. Elias and Lyra led a small strike team to intercept it. Moving quickly through hidden passages and using the knowledge of the terrain, they disabled the ship's energy source. The crew was forced to retreat, and the rogue faction's morale faltered. Elias observed the battlefield. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they acted with purpose and intelligence. Lyra watched him in awe, realizing that the human spirit could inspire even the most powerful aliens to act bravely and wisely. As the rogue faction retreated, Elias and Lyra regrouped with their allies. The valley was battered, but the defenders had won. The alliance had proven that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even overwhelming odds. Humans survived because they turned adversity into opportunity, and now the alien allies had learned the same lesson. Lyra knelt beside Elias, her golden eyes filled with gratitude. "You, human, strong, you help us. You teach," Elias smiled faintly. "Humans survive because we never gave up. We think, we plan, and we inspire others. That is why we are still here. That is why you survived too." The allies worked through the night to repair defenses and tend to the wounded. Elias moved among them, giving guidance, encouragement, and hope. Humans had survived countless battles across the stars, and now that legacy continued through their actions on Kelara. By morning, the valley was quiet again. The rogue faction had retreated beyond the horizon, their plans thwarted. Elias and Lyra stood on a ridge looking at the recovering settlement below. The alliance had survived, but they knew the rogue faction would return. Humans survived by preparing for the future, and now they had allies who shared that understanding. Lyra turned to Elias. We can win?" "Yes," Elias replied. "Humans survived against impossible odds. With courage, intelligence, and hope, we can face any challenge. And now we are not alone. Together, we are stronger than ever." The sun rose over the valley, casting light across the valley and ruins. It was a symbol of new beginnings, a reminder that survival was not just about existing, but about inspiring, learning, and leading. Humans had endured countless hardships, and now their spirit would guide allies who had once been divided. Elias looked at Lyra and the gathered aliens. "The battle today is won, but the war is not over. Humans survived because we think, plan, and act. And now we will continue to survive and protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is what makes us special. That is why we endure." Lyra smiled, her golden eyes reflecting the rising sun. She had learned the power of courage, the strength of intelligence, and the importance of unity. Humans had shown her that survival was more than strength. It was hope, planning, and the ability to inspire others. Elias turned to the horizon. The rogue faction would return, but humans had faced greater dangers before. Their ingenuity, resilience, and leadership had saved countless lives, and now they would do it again. The alliance was strong, the allies were ready, and the human spirit shone brighter than any threat. As the wind swept across the valley, Elias felt a sense of pride and determination. Humans survived because they never stopped believing, never stopped learning, and never stopped leading. Kelara had seen the return of humanity, and the story was only beginning. Together, humans and aliens would face the next challenge. Together they would survive, inspire, and turn the tide against those who sought war. And in that unity, the power of the human spirit was undeniable, a force that could shape the future and bring hope to even the darkest corners of the galaxy. The sun rose over Kelara, bathing the valley in golden light. Commander Elias stood on the ridge, looking out across the plains. The rogue faction had retreated, but their threat remained. He knew they would return stronger, better prepared, and determined to finish what they had started. Elias had faced impossible odds before, and humans had always survived because they relied not just on strength, but on intelligence, courage, and hope. Lyra stood beside him, her golden eyes fixed on the horizon. She had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident in the past days. She had seen the power of human thinking, the ability to adapt, and the courage to act in impossible situations. "They will come again," she said softly. "Yes," Elias replied, "and we will be ready. Humans survive because we plan, we inspire, and we act together. We can protect ourselves and others." The valley below had become a symbol of unity. Aliens who had once feared humans now stood together, ready to defend their homes. They had learned that courage was contagious, that intelligence could shape outcomes, and that hope was stronger than fear. Humans had survived countless wars, countless disasters, and countless worlds, and now their spirit would guide others. Elias gathered the leaders of the alien allies. "We face the rogue faction again," he said. "They think they are stronger, but they underestimate us. Humans survive because we never stop thinking. We will use every advantage, every lesson, and every ally. Together, we will protect our homes and show that war is not inevitable." The aliens listened, their expressions a mix of determination and trust. Lyra stepped forward. "I believe human. We can do this. We are not alone. Elias smiled faintly. That is the human spirit. Strength comes not just from muscle or weapons, but from courage, planning, and unity. We will show them that humans survive, and we will inspire others to do the same. Preparation began immediately. The Allies worked together to strengthen defenses, repair damaged equipment, and train for the upcoming battle. Elias taught human strategies, emphasizing observation, timing, and resourcefulness. Lyra shared her knowledge of alien technology, giving them an edge that the rogue faction would not expect. By nightfall, the fleet of the rogue faction appeared on the horizon, dark silhouettes against the glowing moon. Elias activated the drone to scout the enemy positions, noting patterns, weaknesses, and movements. Humans survived because they understood the value of intelligence, and now their careful observation gave the Alliance the upper hand. Watch the shadows, Elias instructed. Move quickly when they hesitate. Strike where they least expect. Humans survive because we act wisely, not recklessly. The battle began. Energy blasts streaked across the sky, lighting the valley with flashes of light. The rogue faction advanced, but the defenders used every advantage of terrain, traps, and strategy. Aliens who had once doubted humans now followed their guidance, inspired by courage, intelligence, and leadership. Elias led a strike team to intercept a squad of rogue fighters attempting to breach the defenses. Using clever tactics, they outmaneuvered the enemy, turning their strength against them. Lyra coordinated smaller groups, her understanding of alien behavior allowing them to anticipate attacks and respond effectively. Hours passed as the battle raged. The rogue faction's fleet was powerful, but the Alliance's strategy and preparation kept them one step ahead. Humans survived countless battles because they adapted, observed, and inspired allies. Today, that same spirit shaped the outcome. A massive alien command ship descended, attempting to crush the defenses. Elias and Lyra led a daring operation to disable it. Using a combination of human ingenuity and alien knowledge, they infiltrated the ship, avoided traps, and shut down its energy core. The ship faltered and retreated, demoralizing the rogue faction and turning the tide of the battle. Lyra watched Elias in awe. Human, clever. You think, always. You survive, Elias nodded. Humans survived for generations because we use our minds, our courage, and our hope. That is why we endure. That is why we inspire others. By dawn, the rogue faction had retreated beyond the horizon. The valley was battered but victorious. The Alliance had proven that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome even overwhelming odds. Humans survived not because of brute force alone, but because they turned knowledge into action and inspired others to follow. Elias stood among the allies, looking at the horizon. Kelara had been silent for too long. Now it witnessed the return of hope, courage, and unity. The humans' example had shown that survival was more than existing. It was leading, teaching, and inspiring. Lyra approached Elias, kneeling as she had done the first time they met. You human, still alive. You teach, you fight, you lead. Elias looked at her golden eyes filled with gratitude and determination. Yes, Lyra. Humans survive because we believe, we act, and we never give up. And now you will carry that lesson too. The Allies began to rebuild, repairing structures and restoring defenses. Humans had always survived harsh conditions, and now their knowledge and courage guided the efforts. Lyra worked alongside them, learning, teaching, and inspiring others. Together, they strengthened bonds that had once been fragile. Elias walked to the edge of the valley, looking at the rising sun. He thought of Earth, of human colonies across the stars, and of the countless worlds that had survived because of the human spirit. Courage, intelligence, and hope had carried humanity through wars, disasters, and darkness. And now that same spirit was spreading to allies who had once been divided. Lyra joined him. We, humans, strong, you survive always. Yes, Elias replied. Humans survive because we never stop learning, never stop hoping, and never stop inspiring. That is what makes us special. That is why we endure. The rogue faction would return, but they would face a united front. Humans and their allies were ready. Every observation, every plan, and every act of courage had prepared them for the next challenge. Kelara was no longer a silent world. It had become a stage for hope, strategy, and resilience. Over the following weeks, the Alliance grew stronger. Other alien groups joined, inspired by humans' courage and intelligence. Elias trained them in human strategies, showing how to anticipate threats, use resources wisely, and act decisively. Lyra helped bridge understanding, teaching humans about alien tactics and technology. Together, they created a force greater than the sum of its parts. The rogue faction returned with more ships, but this time the outcome was different. Humans and their allies were ready. Using intelligence, careful planning, and unexpected tactics, they turned the enemy's strength against them. Ships were disabled, supply lines cut, and morale shattered. The rogue faction had underestimated humans' ability to inspire and lead. In the final confrontation, Elias faced the rogue faction leader. With courage and strategy, he outmaneuvered the enemy, showing that survival was not only about power but about foresight and clever action. The battle ended with the rogue faction retreating once more, this time permanently. The valley erupted in celebration. Humans had survived, led by courage, intelligence, and hope. Aliens who had once doubted now embraced the lessons of unity and strategy. Lyra looked at Elias, her eyes filled with admiration. "You show human spirit strong, unstoppable." Elias smiled. "The human spirit survives because it inspires, adapts, and acts. That is why humans endure. And that is why you survive too." The Alliance began rebuilding Kailara, creating a new era of cooperation between humans and aliens. Structures were repaired, communities formed, and hope spread across the plains. Humans had shown that survival was more than living. It was leading, teaching, and inspiring others to act with courage and intelligence. Elias looked at the stars above. The universe was vast, filled with challenges and dangers. But humans had survived countless worlds, wars, and disasters. Courage, intelligence, and hope had carried them through every trial. And now that same spirit was shaping the future of Kailara. Lyra knelt beside him one final time, not in fear but in respect. "You, human, still alive. You teach, you fight, you lead, you survive." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, Lyra. Humans survive because we never give up, because we never stop learning, and because we inspire others to do the same. That is why we endure. That is the human spirit." The sun rose high over the valley, casting light on the rebuilt structures and the united allies. Kailara had witnessed a story of survival, courage, and intelligence. Humans had returned not just to survive, but to lead, inspire, and shape the future. The human spirit shone brighter than any challenge, any enemy, or any darkness. As Elias and Lyra looked over the valley, they knew the future was uncertain. But one thing was clear. Humans would survive. Humans would inspire. Humans would endure. And in the hearts and minds of allies, the lessons of courage, intelligence, and hope would continue to spread, shaping a galaxy that had once seemed lost. The story of Kailara was only beginning. But one truth remained. The human spirit could never be defeated. It survived because it acted wisely, led courageously, and inspired endlessly. And that spirit, alive in every human and every friend they had gained, would light the path for generations to come. Kailara was no longer silent. It sang with the voice of unity, courage, and hope. Humans had returned, and the universe had witnessed the unstoppable force of the human spirit.